It's one of the largest armies on the planet, but honestly, its power goes so far beyond the battlefield. We're talking, of course, about the Pakistan Army. This is an institution that's so deeply woven into the country's DNA that, really, to understand modern Pakistan, you have to understand its military. So what's the real story behind this force? Well, let's just start with the raw numbers, because they're staggering. We're looking at about 580,000 active duty personnel. Now, to put that into perspective for you, that easily makes it one of the biggest standing armies in the world. It is a formidable presence, by any measure. So, where did it all begin? Well, the Pakistan Army was officially born on August 14, 1947. It was literally forged in the fire of partition, carved out of the old colonial-era British Indian Army. So as the nation of Pakistan itself came into being, so did its military. You really can't separate its identity from that turbulent, defining moment in history. And right from day one, the Army's entire story has been shaped by conflict. Its structure, its strategy, its whole mindset, all of it was formed in a really tough, often hostile security environment right from the get-go. And when you look at this timeline, one thing becomes crystal clear. For decades, its primary focus has been its neighbor, India. It's fought 4 major wars, with a lot of that conflict revolving around the disputed territory of Kashmir. These wars weren't just isolated events. They fundamentally shaped the Army's purpose and its development for generations. But don't think it's all about the Indian border. Not even close. The Army's experience is incredibly diverse. I mean, they fought in some of the highest, most brutal terrain on Earth in the Siachen conflict. They've been a key player in the global war on terror, fighting a complex counterinsurgency. And they've had to manage internal security challenges, too. On top of all of that, they're a massive contributor to UN peacekeeping missions all over the world. Okay, so this long history of conflict, it brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most complex and controversial part of the Army's story, its deep, recurring role in Pakistan's politics. This is where the line between soldier and politician has gotten very, very blurry over the years. So, what is the Army supposed to be doing according to the law? Well, the Constitution is actually pretty clear. Its job is to defend the nation from outside threats and, only when they're asked, to help the civilian government. That's its purpose, right there on paper. But, and this is a huge but, there's a massive gap between what the Constitution says and what's happened in reality. Throughout its history, the Army has gone way beyond that mandate. It's led to this very serious accusation that it acts like a state within a state, an incredibly powerful force that kind of plays by its own rules. In fact, this isn't just about subtle influence. 4 different times in Pakistan's history, a military general has straight up overthrown the elected government and seized control of the country. This pattern is a central, unavoidable fact of the nation's political journey. Now, beyond all the high-level politics, the Army's presence is felt pretty much everywhere in Pakistani society. It's way more than just a fighting force. It's a massive economic player and a major civil institution. Just look at the sheer breadth of its activities outside of combat. We're talking about huge business interests, taking the lead on massive construction projects, and, as we mentioned, being a major force in UN peacekeeping. They're also often the first responders on the scene during natural disasters. It's completely integrated into the civilian world. And that peacekeeping role, it is not just a side gig. To give you an idea, back in August 2015, there were over 7,500 Pakistani troops serving on UN missions. That number makes Pakistan one of the absolute biggest contributors of peacekeepers in the entire world. It's a huge part of its international image. And the economic footprint is just enormous. You have organizations like the Fauji Foundation, which is this giant business conglomerate. There's the Frontier Works organization that builds critical infrastructure like major highways. The Defense Housing Authority is a massive player in real estate. And, yeah, when there's an earthquake or a flood, it's the Army that leads the relief effort. All right, so we've seen how big it is and how influential it is. But how does this massive machine actually work today? What's the strategic thinking that guides it? Let's take a quick look. At its core, the structure is pretty logical. You can really break it down into 2 main branches. First, you have the combat arms. These are your frontline fighters. The infantry, armored corps, artillery. Then you have the administrative services, which provide all that crucial backup. Everything from medics and logistics to military police. So, what about its fighting philosophy? Well, for decades, its core idea has been something called offensive defense. The logic is pretty simple, really. If you think you're going to face a larger opponent, you don't just sit back and wait for them to attack. The goal is to be proactive, to launch limited, preemptive strikes to throw them off balance before they can even get their own plans in motion. But strategies have to evolve, and in 2013, we saw a really significant shift. The Army introduced a new doctrine, the threat matrix, and this was a huge deal. For the first time, it officially recognized that internal threats, like terrorism and militancy, were a primary danger to national security, right up there with external threats. It was a major adaptation to 21st century challenges. So where does that leave us? At the end of the day, you're left with this fundamental question. The Pakistan Army is, without a doubt, the nation's defender, forged in conflict and respected on the world stage. But it's also an incredibly powerful political and economic force that has, at times, completely dominated the state it's sworn to protect. So is it a sword and shield for the nation, or has it become the nation's most dominant force? The truth, it seems, lies somewhere in that very complex, very delicate balance.